When I think back on that night, I still feel the weight of the silence that lingered between the bursts of laughter, the unspoken truths that hovered in the air, and the way our friendships shifted in ways none of us expected. It started off as such an ordinary evening, the kind you barely notice while it's happening but later realize was the turning point for everything. It was a Friday night, and my best friend Rachel had suggested we all gather at my place. I didn't think much of it. We often had little get-togethers when the week ended. I cleaned up the living room, put out some chips and popcorn, and made sure the old string lights along the bookshelf were working. There was something about their golden glow that made the whole room feel safer, softer. I didn't know then just how much safety and softness we'd all need that night. By 7, Rachel arrived with her boyfriend Aaron, carrying 2 pizza boxes stacked in her arms like prized treasures. A few minutes later, Chris and Emily showed up, each holding drinks, and soon after came Daniel, the quietest of our circle, with his usual shy smile. They all filed in like they had dozens of times before, comfortable enough to kick their shoes off and collapse into the couch cushions without hesitation. I remember thinking how ordinary it all looked. Rachel curled up against Aaron, Emily teasing Chris about his terrible taste in soda, Daniel sitting with his hands clasped like he wasn't sure if he should speak up or just stay in the background. I was in my usual spot, cross-legged on the rug, close enough to the coffee table to refill everyone's bowls with snacks. On the surface, it was the same as every other Friday, but the energy that night was different. At first, we just chatted about work and the week's frustrations. Chris had some hilarious story about spilling coffee on his manager's new shoes, and we laughed until we were out of breath. But when the laughter quieted, the silence that replaced it felt heavier than usual. It wasn't awkward exactly, more like everyone was waiting for someone to say something important. Rachel was the one who finally broke the silence. She set her pizza slice down, cleared her throat, and looked around at all of us like she was about to deliver a confession. "So, I need to tell you guys something," she said. Her voice wasn't shaky, but it wasn't steady either. We all turned toward her, waiting. "Aaron and I," she began, then trailed off, her eyes flicking toward him. He gave her a small nod, the kind you give when you're telling someone to keep going. "We've been thinking a lot about honesty, about how people put on masks, even around their friends." The room grew still, everyone watching her, waiting for the point. Rachel's eyes swept across us. "We realized something. We wanted to be open, totally open. And well, we were hoping you guys would let us be." It was such a strange thing to say. Let them be open? The words hung in the air like puzzle pieces we couldn't quite connect. I could see Emily frowning, Chris raising an eyebrow, Daniel shifting uncomfortably in his seat. And me? My heart thudded a little faster because I knew Rachel, and when she spoke with that much conviction, it meant she was about to push us all into a place we hadn't been before. Aaron reached over and took her hand. "What Rachel means," he explained, "is that we've been learning how much people hide their real selves. Sometimes we just want to be ourselves completely, without worrying about being judged. We wanted to try that tonight with you all." A hush fell over the group. It wasn't what I expected, but it also wasn't unwelcome. Something about the idea tugged at me. I'd always been the kind of person who held back, who kept my worries and doubts neatly folded away where no one could see them. Could I really sit here in this room and be totally honest? Emily laughed nervously. Like, what are we supposed to do? Just say everything that comes to mind. Rachel's eyes softened. Not everything. Just what matters. Just what's real. We wanted to watch each other be us. There it was. That's what she meant when she said they wanted to watch. Not in a literal sense, but in the sense of truly seeing each other, without filters, without walls. They wanted to see us in our most unguarded state. The room stayed quiet for a moment, but then Chris shrugged. "I mean, why not? We've all known each other forever. If we can't be real here, where can we?" And just like that, the tone of the night shifted. At first, the confessions were small. Emily admitted she'd been pretending to love her job when in reality, she dreaded waking up every morning. Daniel confessed he often felt invisible in the group, like his quiet nature made him easy to overlook. Rachel admitted she sometimes felt pressure to be the glue, that held everyone together, and it exhausted her more than she let on. When it was my turn, I hesitated. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting. My throat tightened, but eventually I whispered the truth. Sometimes I feel like I don't matter as much to you guys. Like, if I disappeared tomorrow, you'd miss me for a bit. But then life would go on, and I wouldn't really be missed. The words surprised me as much as they surprised them. I hadn't planned to say that. But once it was out, the relief was immediate, like a heavy stone sliding off my chest. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes glistening. "Don't you ever think that, Sarah," she said firmly. "You matter more than you know. You're the one who keeps us grounded." And then something beautiful happened. Everyone started reassuring not just me, but each other. It turned into this circle of vulnerability, of honesty, of saying things we'd all felt but had been too afraid to voice. We let each other be seen. We let each other be watched, truly watched, in the raw sense. And in that simple act, our friendships deepened in a way that was almost sacred. Hours passed like minutes. We cried, we laughed, we sat in silence when words weren't enough. Daniel, who rarely spoke, ended up sharing the most profound thought of the night. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't changing who we are, it's letting people see us as we already are. By the time the clock struck midnight, the pizzas were cold, the snacks were gone, and the string lights had dimmed to a soft glow. No one wanted to leave. It felt like if we stepped outside, the spell would break, and we'd go back to hiding behind our walls again. But eventually, one by one, they gathered their coats and shoes, hugging each other longer than usual before stepping out into the cool night air. I stood at the doorway watching them go, my heart fuller than it had been in years. That night, we let them watch, and in turn, we watched them. And in that simple exchange, we found something rare: the freedom to be fully ourselves, without fear. It's been months since then, and though we've had other Friday nights with pizza and laughter, none of them have been quite the same. Something shifted permanently. We no longer pretend as much, no longer plaster on smiles when we're breaking inside. We've carried that honesty with us. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be seen. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for others is to watch them, not with judgment, not with curiosity, but with acceptance. That's what we did that night. And that's what changed everything.